Dr. William Tufts Brigham, Firewalks on Lava. Dr. William Tufts Brigham was the highly respected curator for the Bernice Pauahi Bishop Museum from 1898 to 1918 and designated the Hawaii State Museum of Natural and Cultural History. He was a botanist, anthropologist, and a recognized authority on Hawaiian flora, fauna and culture. He amassed a huge amount of information on Kahuna, the mystic and shamanic movement of Polynesia, New Zealand and Hawaii. But despite writing 46 articles and monographs on Hawaiian botany, geology and material culture such as mat weaving, tapa cloth, featherwork and stone and wood carvings, he never published a book on Kahuna, and so this evidence seems to have been largely lost or buried in the archives of the museum. Dr. Brigham found that the Kahuna shamans could heal, summon birds, fish, and animals like porpoises or sharks, see on video and summoning, control the weather, prophesy, operate a sort of bush telegraph between islands using telepathy, and even apparently raise the dead. The vast majority of genuine kahunas had gone by 1900, but Dr. Brigham enjoyed a great deal of trust within the Kahuna Society, and he firewalked with the help of his Kahuna friends. He did nothing except walk on lava in the belief that his friends would look after him. And they did. Recovering the Ancient Magic, Max Freedom Long, slightly abridged. When the flow started, related Dr. Brigham, I was in South Kona at Napupu. I waited a few days to see whether it promised to be a long one. When it continued steadily, I sent a message to my 3 Kahuna friends who had promised to let me do some firewalking under their protection. It was a week before they arrived, as they had to come around from Kaubai Canoe. To them it was our reunion and merited a luau, a native feast. It was night when we finally got off. I was not too sure I would walk the hot lava when the time came. I had seen these 3 kahunas run barefooted over little overflows of lava at Kilauea, and the memory of the heat wasn't any too encouraging. The going was hard that night as we climbed the gentle slope and worked our way across old lava flows towards the upper rainforest. When we got up among the trees and ferns, it was dark as pitch. We fell over roots and into holes, and we gave it up after a time and bedded down in an old lava tube for the rest of the night. Until noon, we climbed upward under a smoky sky, and with the smell of sulphur fumes growing stronger and stronger. At about 3 o'clock, we arrived at the source of the flow. It was a grand sight. The side of the mountain had broken open just above the timberline, and the lava was spouting out of several vents, shooting with a roar as high as 200 feet and falling to make a great bubbling pool. The pool drained off at the lower end into the flow. An hour before sunset, we started following it down in search of a place where we could try our experiment. As usual, the flow had followed the ridges instead of the valleys and had built itself up, enclosing walls of clinker. These walls were up to 1,000 yards in width, and the hot lava ran between them in a channel it had cut to bedrock. We climbed up these walls several times and crossed them to have a look at the flow. The clinkery surface was cool enough by then for us to walk on it, but here and there we could look down into cracks and see the red glow below. Now and again we had to dodge places where colourless flames were spouting up like gas jets in the red light filtering through the smoke. Coming down to the rainforest without finding a place where the flow blocked up and overflowed periodically, we bedded down again for the night. In the morning we went on, and in a few hours found what we wanted. The flow crossed a more level strip, perhaps a half-mile wide. Here the enclosing walls ran in flat terraces with sharp drops from one level to the next. Now and again a floating boulder or mass of clinker would plug the flow just where a drop commenced, and then the lava would back up and spread out into a large pool. Soon the plug would be forced out and the lava would drain away, leaving behind a fine flat surface to walk on when sufficiently hardened. Stopping beside the largest of 3 overflows, we watched it fill and empty. The heat was intense, of course, even up on the clinky wall. As we wanted to get back down to the coast that day, the Kahunas wasted no time. They had brought ti leaves with them and were all ready for action as soon as the lava would bear our weight. When the rocks we threw on the lava surface showed that it had hardened enough to bear our weight, the Kahunas arose and clambered down the side of the wall. It was far worse than a bake oven when we got to the bottom. The lava was blackening on the surface, but all across it ran heat discolorations. The very thought of running over that flat inferno to the other side made me tremble. The Kahunas took off their sandals and tied ti leaves around their feet, about 3 leaves to the foot. I sat down and began tying my ti leaves on outside my big hobnailed boots. I wasn't taking any chances. But that wouldn't do at all. I must take off my boots and my 2 pairs of socks. The goddess Pele hadn't agreed to keep boots from burning, and it might be an insult to her if I wore them. I argued hotly, and I say hotly because we were all but roasted. I knew that Pele wasn't the one who made fire magic possible, and I did my best to find out what or who was. As usual, they grinned and said that of course the white Kahuna knew the trick of getting mana, power of some kind, known to Kahunas, out of air and water to use in Kahuna work, and that we were wasting time talking about the thing no Kahuna ever put into words, the secret, handed down only from father to son. The upshot of the matter was that I sat tight and refused to take off my boots. In the back of my mind, I figured that if the Hawaiians could walk over hot lava with bare calloused feet, I could do it with my heavy leather soles to protect me. Remember that this happened at a time when I still had an idea that there was some physical explanation for the thing. The kahunas got to considering my boots a great joke. If I wanted to offer them as a sacrifice to the gods, it might be a good idea. They grinned at each other and left me to tie on my leaves while they began their chants. The chants were in an archaic Hawaiian, which I could not follow. I almost roasted alive before the kahunas had finished their chanting, although it could not have taken more than a few minutes. Suddenly, the time was at hand. One of the kahunas beat at the shimmering surface of the lava with a bunch of Thai leaves and then offered me the honour of crossing first. Instantly, I remembered my manners. I was all for age before beauty. The matter was settled at once by deciding that the oldest kahuna should go first, I second, and the others side by side. Without a moment of hesitation, the oldest man trotted out on that terrifically hot surface. I was watching him with my mouth open, and he was nearly across, a distance of about 150 feet, when someone gave me a shove that resulted in my having a choice of falling on my face on the lava or catching a running stride. I still do not know what madness seized me, but I ran. The heat was unbelievable. I held my breath and my mind seemed to stop functioning. I was young then and could do my 100-yard dash with the best. Did I run? I flew. I would have broken all records. But with my first few steps, the soles of my boots began to burn. They curled and shrank, clamping down on my feet like a vice. The seams gave way, and I found myself with one sole gone and the other flapping behind me from the leather strap at the heel. That flapping sole was almost the death of me. It tripped me repeatedly and slowed me down. Finally, after what seemed minutes, but could not have been more than a few seconds, I leaped off to safety. I looked down at my feet and found my socks burning at the edges of the curled leather uppers of my boots. I beat out the smouldering fire in the cotton fabric and looked up to find my 3 kahunas rocking with laughter as they pointed to the heel and sole of my left boot, which lay smoking and burned to a crisp on the lava. I laughed too. I was never so relieved in my life as I was to find that I was safe and there was not a blister on my feet, not even where I had beaten out the fire in the socks. "It's magic," he assured me. "It's a part of the bulk of magic done by kahunas. It took me years to come to that understanding, but it is my final decision after long study and observation." "But," I asked, "didn't you try to explain it some other way?" The doctor smiled at me. "Certainly I did. Even after doing the fire walking, I formed a theory that lava might form a porous and insulating surface as it cooled. Twice I tested that theory. I burned my fingers badly, and had only just dabbed at the hot surface.